I do not fear the man who has conquered others. I fear the man who has conquered himself. Attention is a currency that many of us value, whether we care to admit it or not. This configuration in attention manifests itself in multiple different ways and is interpreted in equally many ways in regards to its particular value. For example, I would diagnose with a substantial amount of conviction that female attention is a currency that takes center stage when interpreting most men's value ladder. This is something that I myself continue to struggle with. I particularly struggled with this back in formal education, most selectively at university. I lived for the new matches on Tinder and Hinge, and fundamentally as it hinted and at a prospect of transient pleasure of sex or a variation of sex. You can diagnose most of man's and extended society's neurosis by evaluating the value man ascribes to particular forms of attention. If you, like young Joseph, find yourself ascribing more value to female attention, then you propagate your own suffering, a perpetual circle of prospect of pleasure in and of itself, and then the come down of fleeting satisfaction, and then a new birth of sourcing novel female attention in some other variation. A suffocating cloud of unfulfillment that you cannot escape. The irony that you do this to yourself. So what then is a man to do? I would answer that question by describing an evaluation of the North Star of attention that we are seeking. I have a really difficult time aligning myself with self-professed self-improvement or masculinity or self-actualizing identities that advocate that salvation or liberation lies in the latter or some form of materialism. It's more of the same. You know what is an even more sicker realization is that I discovered my achievements, and I use that word achievements very, very loosely, of bedding thick-thighed Latina women, buying a Canadian or Canada Goose, I believe it's called, jacket, and showing off the latest, Apple Watch or technology, weren't even for my satisfaction. Like, that wasn't my primary aim. Don't mistake me. There was pleasure involved in acquiring those particular things, but when I really contemplate and ruminate it, it's more the prospect of being validated by others. Like, the quickness of sharing these things still causes a disgust reflex in me to this day. You know these men bringing up Instagram pictures of the woman he slept with last night, and this is all unprompted, of course, leaning on the table in hopes that you might ask about their new watch and then proceeding to tell you anyway about it. It's another interesting variation of social attention we ascribe value to, yet imagine the fragility of one's ego that is dependent on sources outside of his own body to give it value, to give it meaning. There exists in you this energetic exchange process in your eyes when you look at something with intensity, and duration of that intensity, its influence in your life grows in its potency, in its propensity. Your eyes are powered by your very consciousness within, the very source of creation or creative faculties. It is actually more accurate to say that when you give something your attention, you give it your consciousness, you give it your energy. That is why in meditation and prayer and other interoceptic practices, they're so powerful, because they return consciousness back to the source. Your internal being is something that many people give little attention to, but it is a means to reorder your value ladder in such a way that you will be forever satiated, that you will never have to look outside of yourself for any forms of validation or completion. The attention you only need long for is the divine grace of God. And what is so intellectually satisfying once you are truly wise is that His grace can always be found in this present moment. So give your present moment your full and undivided attention, because that is the road to the Most High. In everything you do, you will find Him, only if you are adept enough to seek. Then by poetic happenstance, you accrue so much consciousness within yourself that others are forced to follow. It's like you become a star or a sun, star as a sun, so dense that by the other planets in your orbits, will or not, they will enter into a cosmic dance around you. You become gravity itself. You become gravity personified. That is why nihilism is one of the most dangerous mental viruses, with atheism being a very close second behind that, because not only do you close and shut yourself off from this energy, but you begin to deplete its power. I like to think of this as the maturation process behind NPCs, these non-playing characters, very shallow conversation types. Eyes are open, but there is no light behind them. There is no warmth. Empty vessels. And this is a dangerous aspect to these individuals, is an empty vessel, idle and drifting, become tools for evil entities because they live for nothing higher. It's all material. It's nothing divine, nothing righteous, nothing gracious. There is a more reckless side to me that believes we need to hold these people down and administer psilocybin or dimethyltryptamine. And then there can be no doubt that divinity exists, that graciousness exists, that powers beyond your fragile ego are real. But what do you think? Theories or facts? Speak soon.